On today's podcast, Jeffrey Mangus, accomplished ghostwriter, advocate, musician, and author of AMPossible, real-world solutions for amputees to accomplish the impossible. Jeffrey is the CEO of Ghostwriting USA and author of 19 self-help memoir and autobiographical books. Jeffrey is a below-the-knee amputee and proves that life after amputation is limitless. It is our pleasure to introduce Jeffrey Mangus. Hey, Jeff. Good to see you. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
My man, finally we get to see each other. I know we've been struggling a bit to connect and have been going back and forth a little bit with email and such, but here we are, finally. I see the cover of your book behind you there. AMPossible. That's the good stuff right there. Getting into you as a writer, I've done quite a bit of research on you, your background, your journey as an author, and obviously your ghostwriting endeavors as well, which all fascinate me. Considering you one of those high-functioning professional amputees, let's call it. And I guess the first question I have with you is, when did you find writing? When did you realize that that was something that you wanted to do? Was this in your childhood or was this later in life?
It actually started, as a child, as I, come up through as a teenager. I've always been a writer. It was always something that I did. I never intended on being a professional writer, through my entire life, but I've always enjoyed it. I've always done it privately, done things. And then when I was in my 30s, I got into writing books, writing stuff for children. And I ended up publishing 7 different magazine articles for children. And, it was just, again, never any dreams of being a professional writer, just something I enjoyed as a hobby.
Was there anyone that fostered that particular passion when you were young? Was there a teacher, a parent, someone that said, hey, Jeff, you're good at this?
Actually, there was. I had a wonderful teacher. Her name was Mrs. Spencer, and it was in 6th grade. And I was always an avid reader. Reading came easy for me. I read probably 4 or 5 books at a time, telling on myself. But that reading turned into writing, and she fostered that. She really inspired me to keep doing that, because she thought I was, being young. I mean, it is what it is, but she definitely.
What would you say for a young writer that's listening right now? What would you say to a young writer in terms of the biggest challenge that someone might face that is sort of finding their footing in writing and has dreams of, let's say, becoming an author, publishing a book? What would you say are some of those bigger challenges?
The biggest challenge that I find is fear of what other people are going to say, what other people are going to think, fear of, not being able to do it, per se. I have an idea in my head, but not being able to do it. And that's where the ghostwriting play. We'll talk about that later. But my advice to anybody out there aspiring to be a writer, to write a book, whatever it is, I tell authors that nothing is published until you are finished. In other words, you have control. No one's going to see it until it's completely done. So you can rest in that and relax in that, and just tell your story. Get past the fear and just put words on the page. You can fix them later. It's, just get them on the page, get it out there, and then you can start molding the.
I didn't have a lot of real knowledge about ghostwriting until I actually started researching you and your story, because it would seem that ghostwriting is very much a part of what you do professionally. And
Yes.
this is I find this to be a pretty unique form of engagement. let's say
Yeah.
with someone who is trying to get their story out, and so much of what you do seems to cross a lot of different areas in terms of content.
Yes.
So making the transition from being a writer, being an author, to suddenly saying, well, I think ghostwriting might be, a good sort of channel for me.
Hmm.
How did that come about? And can you explain further for people that don't understand the industry, what is
Hmm.
ghostwriting?
Sure. Well, all this came about. This is exactly why we're here. Again, my entire life, always been a writer. Just done. I used to own two real estate companies. I was a real estate broker for many years, and of course, I wrote all of the marketing material myself. Really got myself into the business mode as far as writing. But when I lost my left leg below the knee, the experience that I experienced was not your normal one. Yeah, the treatment that I received was not up to par. I received no physical training whatsoever. I was in the bed for literally with my leg amputated for a month, and no one got me out of the bed. No one worked
So
with me. No one,
no PT,
no PT, zero,
no OT, no PT.
none,
And
zero.
if you don't, I'm not trying to slow down your momentum, but
No, it's okay.
what circumstance were you dealing with that didn't provide you with that kind of care?
Um, that's a good question. I don't understand what was going on. I mean, I was in a good facility. I just don't think. I think things were missed, and my wife was experiencing it with me. And in her defense, she didn't know what to do, how to help me. I didn't know how to help myself. So the immediate thing, though, but when I was, this is kind of going on a spiritual end, because when I lost my leg and I had all of this time, I couldn't move. I couldn't move out of the bed. No one was getting, so everything I was doing was on my own. So I was learning to do things on my own. And I really had time to soul search. And you hear that a lot, but I sincerely sat there and reflected and did a self-assessment on what is it that, Jeffrey, what is it that you wanted to do? What is it that you want to do with the rest of your life? You can't sell real estate anymore. Things shut down. Everything was stopped. And the immediate thought was writing, being a writer, a professional writer. And did I know how to do that? No, I did not. But the way I attacked it is I started writing the book as I laid there healing. I started writing the book. And my first book was called Limb Loss Life. That was the first book. And it was on my own. I published it on my own. And was it good? I thought so at the time, but honestly, it was my first stab at writing a book. So it wasn't great, right? I admit that. But I had to get that story out. I had to,
Yeah.
it was like, I had to journal it. I had to get those feelings, and it helped me deal with the anxiety and the grief and the depression and the confusion that I was going through. And so it was the writing that was really the healing part of what I was going through. And so when all of this happened, after I wrote the book started selling pretty well. And then a friend of mine approached me, a really great friend of mine who's a really, world renowned entity in the open innovation industry. And he approached me and said, "Would you ghostwrite a book for me?" And I had honestly never heard. I knew what ghostwriting was, but I never. And I was nervous, and I said, yes, I would love to do that. So we wrote a book proposal, and we sold the book to HarperCollins right out of the gate. And this is the reason I said that. It's not a brag. I went from losing a limb to being devastated to progress from one book to, next thing I know, I'm ghostwriting a book for someone, and it started a whole new career, a whole new trajectory.
I would
And it
think in
all
a lot
involved,
of I would think in a lot of respects, the fact that this new career path was forged from your amputation,
yes,
that I would think in some ways it would probably lend to your thinking, well, this is all making sense now. This
Yes.
is all kind of falling into place. This is making me feel as if this is what was intended all along. Do you think that writing for let's say some of us that don't visit writing that often,
Hmm.
I do enjoy journaling myself, and it sounds like your first book was somewhat of a personal journal, so
It
to
was.
speak.
Yes.
And do you feel like that would be something that new amputees could benefit from in terms of their own personal therapy and self-care?
That is a great question, and I absolutely give a resounding yes. Whether you're a writer or not, the thing about it is, if you're an amputee and you're going through that experience, the act of journaling your thoughts without the fear of worrying about no one ever seeing it. Don't worry about grammar and typos. It's a matter of just getting it out. And honestly, um, I don't think I could have healed as fast as I did mentally, emotionally, and physically without doing that. And I encourage anyone out there who hasn't tried it, write your thoughts down. Be honest, be open, transparent. What are you feeling? How are you feeling? Are you hurting? What's hurting you? Is it the physical pain? Is it the emotional pain? Is it the loss? It's okay to allow yourself to open up that way on page, and it's cheap. You can get a pencil, a
Yeah.
pen, and a notebook and do it. There's no inventory,
I
there's no
think you're
cost.
right, because so often there's just such a massive spectrum of feelings that we go through when we lose a limb. And there, I think to most of the people in my personal orbit, they always saw it as more of a physical thing to deal with.
That's right.
Like, oh, how are you going to walk? How are you going to work? How are you going to do all the things that you love doing? And very little gets said about the emotional component. And I felt that the emotional pieces were much harder to overcome because donning a
I
prosthesis,
Yep.
learning how to walk again, uh, I'm a musician like yourself. I'm a drummer. So, playing drums again,
Great.
doing, riding a bike, what have you, anything that was physical could be built on. It could be slowly put back together.
Right.
And in a very methodical way, I could get back to doing all the things that I loved. But sometimes I feel like the emotional part, it's in a lot of ways, it never really leaves you because I've heard you talk about, you know, that daily reminder. This was something that resonated with me about you and your wisdom was the daily reminder. When I look down, I have that daily reminder. I have that daily reminder that something very, very difficult has been placed in my life's path. And
Thank you.
I really got a lot out of that perspective. And I appreciated that,
You're very welcome. Thank you
when you
for
said that. And to put to expose yourself through your first book and then your AMPossible. These writings are critical and obviously served as a form of therapy for yourself, but in that you can share that and give that to people is extraordinary.
thank
And
you.
you know, you're the kind of person that when you see an amputee, you're the first one to say, "Hey, I want to give something to you. I want to bestow something and give something to you, share this." And there's certainly some grace in that, which I very much appreciate that you bring to the community. I know you had mentioned a story about someone that you met just last night. Why don't you tell me that again?
Yes, just last night, I normally have a copy of the book near me or close to me, and I had one in the car, and I usually have one here as well. But I've had that one copy, and last night my wife and I went to Cracker Barrel. We went to eat, and just I walked into the gift area. It was a gift shop area. And we'd already paid for the meal, and I was there just waiting on her. And this just gentleman just rolled up in a wheelchair just out of nowhere. And he had just lost his left leg. He was still bandaged up. His wife was pushing him. And he just asked me flat out. He didn't ask me my name. All he said was, he goes, how did you do with your prosthetic? How did you walk? And of course, I've always been a person that I love to help people. I've always been that kind of person. And immediately I just, started talking to him and explaining to him things. And he was really, deeply curious, and I could see their concern in their eyes, because especially his wife. I could tell that she was actually, because she was confused too. And so my wife came up and we started talking, and I told him, I said, just wait right here. And I went and got the book and brought the book back inside, and I gave it to him. And he said, "You don't want any money for it?" I said, "No, I don't want money for it. I want you to take the book." And I said, I hope and pray you get something. And I said, "It's not a book you curl up by the fire with. It's the kind of book that's I hope you can find something to help you get through this journey." And that's exactly what I said, quote unquote. Because it is a journey. No matter what type of limb you lose, it's a journey.
Well, and AMPossible, which is a phenomenal book, which is available on Amazon. We'll talk a little bit more about how people can get their hands on it. This is a how-to manual. This is a way to navigate becoming an amputee, thriving in this space, moving through the difficult feelings, because we have to recognize that so much of being an amputee, it's not just about us. It's about everyone around us.
That's right.
And trying to put ourselves in a place, an empathetic place, or looking through the lens of other people and allowing ourselves to focus away, let's say, just from our own needs, but also the needs of family, and especially a spouse. Would you say that your family played a critical role in your rehabilitation and getting to these plateaus that you're at now?
I'm so glad you asked the question, Rick, because I will say this, and I've said it multiple times, and maybe you've seen it. My wife was the catalyst for all of it, because again, I was looking at myself, of course, being helpless and healing, but I was watching her, and she stepped into a world she didn't know anything about. And neither did I. We were both walking into the dark, and I see that as us going into this, this dark area of our lives, not knowing what we're doing, just searching for, answers. But that's why I wanted to write the book too, especially AMPossible. AMPossible was my way of not only, because I saw the struggle that my wife went through. And I couldn't help it. I did everything I could to help her. And it was watching her struggle, getting me in and out of the car, getting me to the doctors. It gave me strength to say, you got to get yourself going. You got to help her. And so that's part of the book as well. I had to get clear on how I could help someone else experiencing that. How could I help that spouse, that person, the partner, the friend, the family? How can I help them as well as help the amputee? So that was the direction of the book when I met with the publisher. I said, I want to hit two people. I want to hit the amputee, and I want to definitely target the people helping the amputee.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people that are, families, spouses, they're not talked about. They're kind of just on the side, and it's always the focus on the amputee.
Do you feel in that particular scenario, do you feel like that kind of caregiving, I've always felt a sense of responsibility in that if someone is there for me and they bring something to me in ways of support and love and patience, that it becomes my responsibility to not only reciprocate, right, and
Right.
sort of return that energy, but also as a person to do my very best to become my best self. And very often when I think about, my personal, let's call them cheerleaders in my life that are all
Yes.
kind of like lining the sidelines of my life, right?
Right.
And I'm on the playing field and they're all, with their
That's a
arms
great.
raised and going, go,
Yeah.
go, go, go. I always feel like, well, shit, man, I got to score a touchdown.
That's right.
It's on me.
Exactly.
It's on
Yeah.
me. These people are
Exactly.
counting on me to do well. They're making an
That's right.
investment in me. So when I pursue things in my own life, very often I am motivated by the people who love me. I am
Yes.
motivated by the people who have shown an interest in my personal development. And I agree with you in the sense of wanting to give something back to the community, because I think this journey, we realize that we're part of something a lot bigger.
Right.
The amputee community, I think you would agree with me, and you're living proof just based on your story about, not even being provided proper rehabilitation services. We're very underserved as a community.
That's right.
There's a lot
Completely
of
agree.
amputees that slip through the cracks, fall in a hole, and they're yet to ever come out of that place, that very, very dark place.
That's exactly right.
Whether that's deficiencies in, insurance coverages, or
Lack of
deficiencies
work.
in finding the right prosthetist,
Yep.
getting the right technology for your particular residual limb, all of those things that we realize as amputees very early in the process. There's that uh-oh kind of moment of, oh man, this isn't easy. Like, no one is going to help me through this.
That's right.
And now I got to
Yeah.
navigate this vast amount of terrain that it's unrecognizable to me. There is no part of this experience that feels familiar to me at all.
That's exactly right.
I am
Exactly right.
completely in the dark right now. I am that guy who's feeling the walls, lights are out, and I'm trying to feel my way down a hallway.
That's
And I have
right.
no idea if the floor is going to drop out from under me. I have no clue.
Right.
It's kind of like the first time you fall down as an amputee,
Oh, yeah.
and
Scary.
you think, oh yeah, that leg's not there anymore. Boy, does
Well, that happened to me. I fell out of the bed. At one point I woke up, and this is a personal story. I woke up, and I even talk about it in the book. It's in there. Talk about I forgot that I didn't have a leg, and I had to use the bathroom, and I just swung out.
Yep.
Swung out of the bed like normal, and the momentum from the one weighted leg to the other leg not there, it toppled me, and I landed straight on my stump.
Yep.
And it startled me. Like, oh my gosh,
I've
scary.
had a similar experience, and then I couldn't wear my prosthesis for a couple days because I was tender and sore, and those are the sort of snap into reality kind of moments that we experience.
Exactly.
With your marriage, it sounds like
Mhm.
you have a tremendous bond in your marriage.
We do.
And
We do.
it sounds to me like, for you in particular, your marriage very much survived the
Yes.
the amputation, and you've learned as a couple how to navigate
We
that
have.
situation. So
We have.
I admire you in that regard. I know there's many amputees out there that don't make it in terms of their relationships.
That's right.
And for someone that has had a positive experience, and we all know that the everyday isn't always peaches and cream. There's always some struggle, but
Right.
I'd want to give you a moment to sort of give your own brand of wisdom to couples out there that are, like this couple you met last night.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say to two people, two spouses that are just embarking on this journey right now?
My advice, and from my experience, what worked for me, of course, everyone's different, but what worked for me was being completely honest and open about what I was feeling. And that again, that goes back to the journaling. I was, when you start doing this and writing, you start unpacking feelings you didn't know. But being open, honest, and communicative with my wife, and not complaining. There's a difference between being crabby and all that stuff, but actually talking and saying, "Honey, I don't understand how I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to go to the restroom. Can you help me? I don't know how to get a drink of water right now because I can't move. Can you help me?" And then also, events where we just sat down and I said, "I'm hurting right now. I'm very depressed. I don't know how to, handle it. I just want you to know it's not you." And the same thing with the spouse. I want anyone out there, a partner, friend, family, spouse, to know that, open up to the amputee. Tell them you're feeling. Tell them how that you're confused. You don't understand, and that it's about being understanding with each other and open. And I keep saying that, but it's just absolute fact. Without communicating, if you don't communicate your feelings, either to your spouse or through journaling, whatever. But if you can't communicate them, they're going to be bottled up, and that bottled up keeps building. And telling on myself, and again, it's in the book. There was a moment where all of the grief and all of the anxiety, everything I experienced, came to a head, and there was a moment where I blacked out. I just, and my wife said I was saying things that about my family that she never knew, that it was all of this just poured out. But then she said, "I didn't realize that you had all this hurt in you." Not, yeah, the amputation was a hurt thing, but there was other things going on, but it all came out. And I don't remember it, but she said it helped her. She said it helped her understand me.
Sure.
And I'm glad that moment happened, even though I'm glad it didn't anything like that. But yeah, my advice is to be. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to feel confused. It's okay to feel, and I'm talking really to the spouse and the amputee. It's okay to feel these things. Allow yourself, give yourself permission, and let the world go past you. Just catch up with yourself.
Well, I think the giving permission piece is the critical. That's my takeaway, is giving each other permission to feel and to express,
right,
and to voice and question, because so much of being an amputee, there's so many unknowns. And you were talking about falling out of the bed, and most amputees don't realize how hard it is just to navigate in bed when you have limb loss.
That's exactly right.
Lower extremity loss, you don't realize the counterbalance that your limb creates, and even sometimes getting up or getting out of bed becomes a chore because you've lost that sort of counterbalance that your body and your brain is hardwired for to get up out of bed.
That's exactly right.
And you find yourself twisting and turning and doing all these weird, all these weird movements to get yourself square again. But I do appreciate those words, because I know there are a lot of couples that reach out to me that are struggling in that situation, understanding what is life going to look like, what's our activity level going to look like, what's our intimacy going to look like, what is all of these things that we enjoy we enjoyed before this amputation. What is this going to look like? And are we strong enough to survive this? And I really think that those words go a long way for that
Thank you.
particular scenario. I want to talk to you about something you're no stranger to. I want to talk about diabetes.
Yes,
Diabetes is it's an epidemic in our country. It's
it
it's
surely is.
something that can cause all kinds of damage and circulatory issues and healing issues and all kinds of things that can destroy vision and
Yes.
organs, and obviously can lead to situations like yourself. I was reading about you, and you've been strong enough, and I see someone who is willing to be transparent enough, and certainly, again, I see it as a sign of strength to recall what your life was like before amputation, which you're this highly successful guy in real estate, working very hard, playing very hard, I'm sure, and doing what people do in this country, which is to overachieve, to do as much as you can, and to be a great earner. And in that mix, someone wasn't paying attention to their body. And you ended up in a tricky situation where you had developed like many amputees that are diabetic, you had developed a sore that wouldn't heal. You went through wound care. You went through a number of different things. Uh, what would be, looking back on that now, and certainly looking at your life as it is today, you're a very accomplished guy, and you've somehow figured out how to navigate all of this. And, don't take this the wrong way, but people like yourself make it look easy, right?
Yeah.
Um, Looking back at that time in your life, I'm sure blood sugar's out of control, stuff like that. What would be the advice you would give to someone, let's say, who is on that diabetic journey right now? And, what kind of advice, what kind of wisdom could you provide to give them some perspective?
That is such a great question, because diabetes still is the number one thing that I deal with every single day, above and beyond my limb law. My advice to anyone listening that does have diabetes is today, this minute, start paying attention. Start taking, when I say the words taking care of yourself sounds kind of broad. I mean, genuinely take yourself as the number one person you got to take care of. Because if you have a family, you have, children, it is your responsibility to take care of yourself. I did not do that. I did go to doctors. Did I pay attention to them in being fully transparent? No. I just went on with my life, ate the food, ate the burgers, ate whatever I wanted, and eventually it got me. Because my limb loss started with me with due to neuropathy, losing my left toe and part of my left foot, and that's what started the chain of events that where I could not get that healed, and it got worse, and then septic, and I can go on about that, but that started the chain of events. But that losing my toe and part of my left foot started my diabetic journey in taking care of myself, and I maintain that every single day, and my blood sugars now are doing wonderful, absolutely wonderful, because I watch what I eat. I take myself seriously, and take my diabetes as a disease. You have to take it serious. If you do not take it serious, you will end up with circulatory issues, neuropathy, amputation, or unfortunately death.
Yeah.
And it's just something that has to be taken serious, and you can't put it off to the side. You can't forget about it. You have to have it fully in front of you at all times. Because once you are a diabetic, you are always a diabetic. So you're going to have to deal with the rest of your life. And my advice is to take yourself seriously and take the disease.
Well,
And really,
yeah, I mean, that goes a long way. I think people need to hear those words and to really, really try to make an effort. I always say to love themselves.
that's great.
You're worth it. Love
You are worth it.
yourself. Take care of yourself. Don't
Because you have
see,
responsibility to the people around you to be alive as long as you can. It's your responsibility, and
Yeah.
without doing that, it's like it's a slow, miserable thing.
yeah, don't see that kind of self-care as a chore.
Right. It's not a chore.
It's not a chore. It's just you're loving yourself. You're taking care of yourself.
Absolutely.
Think about yourself when your mother saw you as very vulnerable and you were just a baby, and your mother held you and took care of you and nurtured you and did all those things to make you feel safe. Sometimes we have to do that for ourselves. We have to say, hey, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to make sure that you're well and you can enjoy your life and you can do the things that you want to do. I think that so often anything medical, and I'm always surprised by this because I have plenty of family and friends that'll openly admit, like, I mean, I don't really think about that stuff. I don't go to the doctor, or,
right.
I have coworkers that'll say, oh, I haven't been in the doctor in 8 years. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, not even a physical? And no, don't need to go. I feel fine. I'm like, we all feel fine until we don't. And usually when we don't, that could have been prevented.
Right.
And something could have been done to slow down or even prevent that particular chain of events.
That's exactly right.
Getting back to AMPossible, what would you say is the best way for us to get our hands on your book?
It is on Amazon, of course, and it is available in hardback. It is available on Audible and Kindle, and also on CD. Anyone, they're still producing it on CD as well. It is at Roman and Littlefield, my publisher. It's on their website, and it is Books A Million, Barnes and Noble, everything online. It is out there.
Okay. So not hard to find.
It's not hard to find.
Yes, that is AMPossible. And what does, given your writing and your passion for this community, and I look at someone like yourself and I'm inspired because I see what you've done and how you've taken something that can be, I mean, by many considered to be sort of life-crushing, life-ending, and you found a new career from it. You've become very much an advocate in this space. I mean, what do you see as a successful amputee lifestyle?
That's a great question. What I see as a successful amputee lifestyle is keeping yourself open to possibilities. If you can still do your job that you love to do, that's great. But if you're in a position where I was, where I could no longer do the physical job that I was going to do, I had to look elsewhere. I had to figure out what I wanted in my life, and that's what I advise you to do as well. Go back to the drawing board, self-assess. What is it you ask yourself? What is it you truly want to do, and pursue it. Go after it. If you don't know how to go after it, there's so many ways now to find way to learn things and books that you can study. But the only excuse is there's no excuse. I mean, you got to get yourself going and moving in a positive direction, no matter how you do it. And everyone's situation is different. I get it. There's so many people that are in some really bad situations, don't have the funds to do things, this and that. But again, if you want to do something bad enough, you can find ways.
How do you
That's how I
feel
live.
about, what's your take on social media at the moment when it comes to amputees? Of course, I
Mm,
spend a lot of time in many different amputee, groups,
me
pages,
too.
people
Me too.
there's lots of organizations that,
Yes.
commiserate, and there's lots of sort of chatter going on online. I know there's a lot of amputees that sort of find a home with social
Yes.
media. That's their place.
Yes.
Um, as far as what I am, I guess, sort of a spectator of, on the one hand, I see amputees thriving. I see amputees doing active things. I see amputees, whether they're engaging athletically, whether they're engaging professionally,
Yes.
but they're, in my opinion, they're really like kind of superstars. I mean, they're doing some really cool stuff. But then there is this other camp. And I think where I struggle is in that camp, because I do see very much in the amputee community this sector of negativity, this
Yes.
sort of dark, negative, and I'm going to get some hate email over this, but it's like a pity party.
Yes.
It's a why me, poor me. I don't know how to do this. My prosthetist sucks, and no one's helping me, and I'm not saying that struggle is not real,
No,
because
it's
we've all been through it. I would never ask. I would never say these things unless I was an amputee myself,
that's right.
and I know that struggle is there. But I mean, from where you're sitting,
Hmm.
how do you see all of those interactions? What's your observation?
Well, I'm in a lot of groups as well, and you nailed it. The interaction I see is there is a lot of people um, that throw out the pity, that throw out, "Hey, I can't do this," but and I think the camp that you're talking about is larger than the camp that there's a lot of amputees that have excelled in a lot of things. I'm friends with some great athletes now, para athletes, and just so many people. But that's why I wrote AMPossible, was for the other. Yes, it's to help every amputee, but it was really directed toward the camp of the people who are struggling emotionally, physically, and want to get over that, you know, pity party. It's okay to have a pity party, but just don't keep the party going every day. You got to get past it, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, you got to put the party down. Um, and I know I don't want, again, I'm not trying to offend anyone. I've been there. I live it. I live it every single day. I know that sometimes you can get so down. You're like, I just can't do this. I just can't. I'm tired. I'm tired of having to get my leg on and off.
Don't
Especially
you
when you're
don't you
sick.
feel like there's days that are just, it's a lot. It's in the loss column. It's like,
It's a lost
I hate
column.
to keep
Absolutely.
using the sports analogy, but it's like,
No,
you
it's
don't
great.
win every game. And I
No,
see every day as an opportunity to win. And there are going to be days that close as a loss. And
that's exactly right.
recognizing like, hey, today was not my day. But you
Yeah,
know
today
what?
wasn't a good day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
here's the gift of life, is that tomorrow is another chance.
that's right.
Another
That's
chance to
exactly right.
try, another chance to do better, another
And
chance to try to put my prosthesis on. Okay? And I really feel like so often some of those people will seek out, I guess, an echo chamber so they can just
yes,
sort of exist in that very
yeah,
negative place.
that's
I had done an interview with an amputee recently who was accused of toxic positivity.
hmm,
He was
interesting.
told that he was too positive, and I've really have had to spend some time processing that.
Yeah, I get that. I see that. I understand that completely because I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're go ahead.
there are, there are those who, that love to live in that space, because when you're in that space, it's a safe place. Even if it's a negative place, it's a safe place in that person's mind.
Yeah.
And the way, if often you can get comfortable in that space, even if it's a negative, dark space, you can get comfortable there because you're afraid to move forward. You're afraid to move forward and get out of that space because it falls right back to why we're here. The book, it's about not knowing what to do and moving forward through the dark. And a lot of people stay in that space. And my advice is to, no matter how comfortable it is, if you want to move forward with your life, feel better, you have to go through the dark to get.
Yeah.
And every single day as an amputee, yes, it is a journey, and you're going to fail some days. There's going to be days it's just not going to be your day. You're down. You just have to just embrace it. Say, okay, today wasn't it. And I'm going to just, rest and compose myself and get back on the horse again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And your book is certainly a testament to finding your best self and, doing what seems to be the impossible. And I very much appreciate that. I want to pivot away from all this really heavy stuff, Jeff.
Yeah, it'd be great.
We're going to talk about music.
Great.
Before we close out the show. Being a fellow musician, of course, seeing you in that musical space got me, very interested in what you're doing. And, what's this guy all about, man? Like, I was very entertained by, just your creativity. And I mean, it makes sense. You're a writer. So of course he's a musician, but I mean, tell me about music. Tell me about, when did music enter your life? Were you a childhood musician, or was it just something that developed over time, or kind of discuss that with me?
Yeah. Thank you so much for, it's been a long time since someone's asked me about music. Yeah. I started playing guitar when I was 6 years old. Literally. I started, my mother said all I ever wanted, a guitar in my hand, little toy guitars that cranked. It didn't matter. As long as it had a neck and strings, it was all good for me. And I remember that. I remember that's all I wanted to do. And so I pursued music throughout my teenage years. I taught myself how to play. Then I went to college and studied music. I was going to be a teacher.
Wow.
And I ended up being chosen to be in a band that ended up going on tour and touring the country. And so I toured the U.S. and then I ended up, we moved to Los Angeles, California in 1980, I think it was 85, 86. And I just pursued music. We played Hollywood, Sunset Strip, got signed to a small record label, produced some records. We were really, it was just one of those things that I went after that, and I have no regrets. We didn't make it, but we came close. We gave it all we had. We gave up everything and moved. And but I still play music every single day. If you were to see my guitars to the left, I have guitars hanging there. I love music. I love guitars. I love creating, and honestly, the creativity that I possess is probably my most valued asset and trait. I use it in my writing, the ghostwriting aspect. When I'm working for an author and I'm writing for an author, to be able to capture an author's voice, it takes that creativity. It takes that being able to, just like I can hear a song and just play it. I can visualize the chords and just hear it and play it. That's how I won my wife over, by the way. My first date, I was playing music for her and just playing every song she could give me. But anyway, but as I use that creativity that into whatever it is that I dive into to be able to capture that author's voice. I'm able to picture the author in my head, hear their voice, study their diction, their tone, their style, and put it onto the page. And this career, from my amputation, I've written books for celebrities now. I've written it's been amazing. And musicians, guitarists. I've written for these
Didn't
people
you
that I
write a
speak their
book
language.
for Al Di Meola?
Al Di Meola, yes, sir.
That's incredible.
Thank you.
I'm a huge fan, by the way, of his work.
Al Di Meola, yeah, I have followed him my entire life, and it all just kind of happened. And I've been working with Al now. The book is finished. It's going to be published here in 23, and I worked with him for about 2 years, and
Wow.
was able to get. And I'm allowed to say that as a ghostwriter because he's published it on his page that he's worked with me. Normally, as a ghostwriter, there's a lot of confidentiality, but he's allowed me to do that, and which is really great, gracious. But he worked with him 2 years. Just a wonderful guy, very, very warm, down to earth, and he's invited me into his homes. It's been great. I've met his family, and we're now. Al Di Meola texts me. We talk a lot. We became friends, and that's what happens in these collaborations. It's always the author and I, because we're so close knit together that we're able to forge these relationships.
I've always seen music as sort of it's almost my mode of comparison when you talk about rhythm and things in life that are assembled in a certain way where they feel right. And to me, it's always about life has to be the perfect song. It has to have the right melody. It has to have the right tempo. It has to have the right, composition, so to speak. And, I became a drummer at very similar to your story at 5 years old. And
wow,
it's been a part of me my entire life. My father
Good for
was
you.
a rhythm and blues sax player, and I took to music very, very young, was always around music in the house.
Yes,
And it's something that I do to this day. And
good for you.
yeah, the big thing for me with losing, my right leg was, well, being a drummer, your right foot is very, very active.
Absolutely.
You could strike a kick drum, a few thousand times in the course of a performance.
Yeah.
And so much of it was getting to know my instrument and learning how to play it again.
Right.
In a lot of ways, it was tremendously challenging, but also served as, again, affirmation about I can do this. Like there's nothing that I can't do. Someone would say, well, okay, your drumming days are over. You lost part of your body. How you gonna
Right.
do this? And it was something that I felt so passionate about. And because it was part of me, it would be like someone saying, well, you lost a limb, so now you can't breathe. Sorry.
Right.
Like how,
Right.
well, how am I going to live if I can't breathe?
That's
Well,
exactly right.
I'm sorry, you're just not going to be able to breathe. So looking at a situation like that was, well, no, I'm going to continue my passion for music, and that's not going to change. I'm going to keep doing it. So when I see someone like yourself going through what you've been through, and even knowing more now that guitar playing, songwriting, performing has been a part of your life, throughout the entire course of your life is
Right.
wonderful. And I very much see music as a therapy also.
Every single day.
If
I play
you
music.
don't play music, that's fine. I always say at least embrace music as a form of therapy. Find music that gives you joy, that brings you hope. And I'm happy to create a playlist for anybody.
Right.
If
Yes.
you say, hey,
Yes.
I'm just looking for 15 really solid inspirational songs to listen to, while I'm going to physical therapy, I'm
Right.
like, okay, that's no problem. I'll take care of that for you.
Exactly.
And I believe sharing music is a beautiful thing. When I have an opportunity to share those ideas, with others, it's a wonderful thing. It really is. It's like, I've been I've been sharing music with my girlfriend, Sarah, her son, and it's been so much fun just kind of pinging back and forth different songs, different ideas, and then discussing that. And of course, he's much, much younger than me.
Sure.
So for me, it's very much an education on, being cool again. Like, hey, I'm listening to like the cool music now.
Right.
And this is what the young people listen to. So to embrace that, I think it's such a connection point with people. So I think it's really important. What would you want to say in closing to the amputee community out there?
Before I say that, I want to tell you, as a drummer, when I was writing the book, I'd actually spoken to Rick Allen from Def Leppard about.
Talk about someone I'd love to interview right there.
Yeah, Rick's a great guy, but he's very kind of private. Only reason I got to speak to him briefly. A friend of mine named Todd Waits. Todd Waits is a fantastic keyboard player, and he lost his arm when he was 7 years old to cancer. And he became a world. He's just a fantastic keyboardist who's played with everyone from Bon Jovi to you name it. And Todd and I are great friends, and he endorsed the book as well. But he knew Rick and introduced me. And but the reason I said that, let's look at Rick Allen as a drummer. He could have gave up.
Absolutely,
his whole band could have given up on him,
and they didn't.
But they did. They waited, and he was able to adjust himself and reconfigure his drum kit so he could play without his arm.
Absolutely. And he said, I still have 3 limbs, so I'm going to figure out a way to create these rhythms with the limbs that I have left.
Exactly. It was an amazing story, and it still amazes me because, and what I get out, again, Def Leppard, the band, could have just moved on. They could have gotten another drummer, but no, instead, they waited on their brother. Yep. And that's as a testament to friendship and bonds and relationships. And that's why anyone listening, your relationships with your spouse, your friend, your family, your friends is just as important for them to support you and you to support them as an entity. Help them help you. But in closing, your question was, Rick, again, apology.
Just, what would you want to say in closing to the amputee community out there? What is something that you'd like to leave them with today?
This is to the amputee community and groups out there. My advice is to, again, understand yourself. Get to know who you are and how you can help yourself when it comes to medicine, diabetes, whatever, whatever's going on with you and your personal situation. Understand yourself and truly, keep striving to understand yourself. Every day for me, I'm learning something new about myself that I didn't know yesterday. And if you do that, and once you start to have at least come to terms with who you are and what's going on in your life and the situation, you can help others around you, and it makes your life better. And if you're in a dark spot, if you're in a position where you don't see where your life can get any better, my advice to you is it can. It has to be in your mind. It has to be in your heart. You just have to go for it. You have to find it. You can't sit idle. Sitting idle will cease everything. So understand yourself and then also get going, move forward, get out of that dark spot. Do your best to get out of it. Do something different that you haven't done. Visit somewhere that you've never visited. Do something that you normally would have never done even before you're an amputee. Try to do something that you can do with your limb loss. And again, talk to others, be open, be transparent, and things will work out.
That's amazing. Those are powerful words. This is Jeffrey Mangus. The book is called AMPossible. I want to thank you, sir, for being here today.
Thank you, Rick.
Fantastic stuff for people to really be checking out. Please, please check out his book. My name is Rick Bontkowski. That's going to wrap it up for us today. This is the Amp'd UP211 podcast, and I want to wish everyone health and happiness. We'll see you next time.